You are now listening to Abstract Thought. This is a podcast where artists, creatives, designers, and musicians discuss their path through art, their early influences, and some of the stuff they're doing to this day. And today, I'm sitting down with a extremely talented artistic designer, creative, I believe also musician, and just an all-around talented dude, Ludvig Wernissage. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for the compliments. I didn't expect that. What an intro. Yeah, thank
No,
you.
no
Good.
problem, man. We were talking just before we hit record. I'm a super big fan of the videos that you do on YouTube. You do a really, really cool deep dive into kind of the artistic style behind the Halo games. You even, which I think is admirable given some of the Halo community, you share your own opinions and things that you think could either have made the games better or made the design better. And yeah, with the whole new Halo TV show that actually just came out today. I don't know if you've seen it or not yet.
I have
Yeah,
actually.
what's your
Yeah, this
thought?
morning. No, it's interesting because as you probably know, a lot of people have had, negative things to say about it. I was always hopeful, but I didn't want to get my hopes up too much. But maybe it's because of the negative buzz surrounding it. But I was pleasantly surprised. Like I really liked it. But that's also because I knew it was going to be different. It's not like the games exactly. So, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think it has potential.
That's awesome, man. I haven't watched it yet. I kind of had some other things I was doing today, but it's definitely on my agenda to, like, as soon as I have the free time, dive in and watch that.
Yeah.
Um, and just to give some of our listeners a bit of a backstory, if you haven't checked out Ludwig, is it Ludwig or Ludwig? I don't know how exactly to say
Ludwig. Ludwig.
Ludwig, and then it's
Yeah.
Vernissage with.
Yes, exactly.
Got you. Okay.
Nice. You're actually like weirdly good at pronouncing my names, like both of my names.
Well,
Uh,
that's quite a compliment because, like I said, I'm here from the middle of the nowhere
yeah,
in the U.S., so
I'm
I
impressed.
try my best.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the listeners haven't seen your stuff, where can people engage with some of your artwork and videos and just general stuff?
Well, I guess my main place for just like artworks and stuff is still Instagram, where I started off. So Vernissage, I believe you can also just type in the art of Halo and it should come up. Um, so yeah, basically on Instagram, but then I'll obviously have my YouTube channel where I have like where I focus on videos, obviously, and my Twitter, Vernissage YT. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Thanks, man. Yeah, if listeners, you haven't checked out his stuff and you're a fan of the Halo games or just a fan of really cool, you know, digital artworks and kind of sci-fi futuristic aesthetic, my artwork is very angular and geometric in nature too. And I draw a lot of influence from some of the Halo games. And that's also how I ended up finding your videos too. I was like, I'm kind of producing this Halo inspired canvas series, etc. And yeah, I was trying to dig deeper and learn more about some of the lore and the history behind some, either armor or just Halo aesthetics in general. And then I found your channel and was like, dude, this is not only is it interesting information, but the way it's packaged, the way you interlay the music bed back behind some of the dialogue and stuff. And I don't know, I just think I can tell you take your time and you really are like passionate about the way you go about it. And, I really engaged with some of your videos in that way. And yeah, I've let them just kind of play in the background as I paint in my studio. So it's provided me a
That's
lot of
awesome.
inspiration, man.
Thanks. That's really nice to hear you know when you do something like I do. You make art for a couple of weeks, most of the time. Then I gotta write a script. Then I gotta make sure this art looks good on video. Then I gotta edit the video. It's a lot of like when you make art and then turn that into a video and you talk over it. It's obviously a lot of steps, so it's nice to hear that. So it feels like it's worth it instead of just me just like showing my art in a video and not saying anything, because that would be a lot easier. But it's fun to hear that it pays off.
Yeah, definitely, dude. And in a way, video making and even voiceover, it's an art in and of itself too.
Yeah, it's hard work, gotta say.
Absolutely, man. So I guess if I can go back just out of curiosity, what was some of the art that you were into kind of in your early years, whether it be as a kid drawing, or did you have people in your family or any like notable, art school teachers or something that kind of piqued your interest, or how did you get involved in art and also music?
Um, okay. I want to apologize in advance if I'm like a bit all over the place going through my life. But I'll see if I can find the highlights. I want to say like where I started with art was basically with Spider-Man. When I got interested in Spider-Man, which was I was probably like 4 years old, I think. Um, and I started painting Spider-Man because I just thought it was, he looked cool and all that. And then I realized there were some movies, so I watched the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 and 2, and that obviously kept me like. I think that made me realize like, oh, he's three-dimensional. Okay, how does shadows work? Kind of like, and when it comes to Spider-Man, especially wearing spandex, it's you really gotta like show clearly you know how shadows work and how light works. I wasn't a professional back then, but I think that got me thinking in like how does light work? Where do shadows you know end up? Um, so I think that really got me into shading and that kind of stuff. So that's really I was never really good at making abstract stuff. I just felt like, okay, I kind of know how shadows work. Let's just stick with that. So I've made a lot of faces, a lot of eyes, noses, and all that growing up. And but I was the only one doing art in my school growing up. So it was both like something good and something negative because like none of my friends liked art. So they were more into sports and stuff. So I felt quite alone in that way. But at the same time, like the art teacher obviously liked me because I was the only kid there wanting to learn, um, which was fun. And it was the same with music, basically. It was like me and a few other girls who liked music. The other ones, they didn't care. Uh, that also made it so yeah, I wanted to keep going because I felt like, okay, I don't have much competition. Let's just let's just go with this. Um, but um, but yeah, I think it also helped because my teacher at the time, my Swedish and history teacher, she was really supportive because she noticed I was doodling and making sketches like when we had other classes, and instead of yelling at me, she actually gave me like a sketchbook so I could sketch stuff in the meantime because she noticed like that's how I focus. So that really helped. Like I had a lot of people who supported me in the art and the music, which I think really, really helped.
That's huge, man. That's super duper cool. Would you say that your music and kind of early art influence, did those things kind of happen at the same time, or did did you start one, progress to the other, or did they kind of just grow alongside one another?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to say like right now, if we would jump to the present, I feel like I have a good balance. Like art is more work to me. It's my YouTube channel. It's what I want to do in the future. While music is very much a hobby, but I very much like music. Maybe, I mean, at least as much as I like art. But I want to say I started off with art. Uh, Music is something like I picked up when I started playing guitar, which was, I think I was 14, 13 or something like that. Um, and I just kept going with that. So that kind of took over the whole art thing. I started going to an art school just as I was transitioning into more of the music interest. So I kind of, I was stuck between two worlds, and I started a band with a few friends, which was a lot of fun. Like when I want to say 16 years old. Um, so I think I kind of put art to the side, even though I went to art school at the time. I didn't really care that much because I was doing music. But then I kind of found my way back to art, and now it's more of a healthy relationship because I realized, okay, I can't. It's not that easy to do both things just as much. Let's just make it so art is more of a job, because I feel like that's something I don't feel too much pressure with it. While music is a lot more pressure. Like I gotta write a hit song constantly, which I I don't want to do that. But yeah, I think I have a healthy balance right now.
That's cool, man. Yeah, as far as being a musician goes, it's like you see that path of, all right, well, either we start a band and we start touring and we just drive across the countries in like a tiny, dirty, stinky van for
Yeah.
years and scrape it out until eventually, hopefully, someone gives us a record deal or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like too, like your interest in music and art are cemented in the fact that like through the Halo series, both of those things play such an integral role. You know,
Definitely.
from the art direction to the music of those games, they're all at the forefront of the overall aesthetic and mood and tempo of those games. So you said earlier you were kind of into like the Spider-Man side of things and experimenting with drawing some of that. Um, at what time did you sort of get involved in sort of the Halo universe, if you will? And what was your first kind of take on that?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because Halo was with me before Spider-Man. Like I think I started playing Halo like when I was 4, I think, because we me and my brother went to a friend's house and we played Halo there because they had the original Xbox. Uh, so even though Halo wasn't really what brought me into either art or music directly, I think it really, I think it kind of did, like even though I didn't notice it, like it kind of brought me into like, oh, this looks good. Why does it look good? Like these skyboxes, why do they look good? Why does this make me feel something? And why does this music keep sounding so good even though I've heard it 1,000 times? Um, so I think like growing up, I realized like, oh, maybe the Halo games wasn't just something I just happened to play when I was young. Maybe it's actually like a good game series. And I that's something I realized after a while, because I kind of took a break from Halo for like 2 3 years, playing Call of Duty. When I was like 12 years old, I had that stage. But then I kind of found my way back, and I realized like, oh, this is incredible. Like I didn't realize how good this was, because when you're little, you don't really like notice that clearly what makes a good game good. But growing up, I felt like, oh, okay, this is a good game series, and I want to see what I can do with it. So I started sketching like Master Chief and stuff in school, and yeah, then it just, like, how I started my Instagram and all that. It just started as me just wanting to post my art somewhere, kind of as a shit post account, um, because I've told people before, but my name Vernissage is basically just a pun. Like it's like vernissage in Swedish, which is, I think it's a French word. I think it's like an art exhibition. So it's that and my last name, which starts with a W. So I kind of merged those together. Uh, but then I went to university after school, and I went there for 1 year, and then I got burned out because I realized like this isn't much. This isn't very fun, because it was a lot of marketing and programming, and I realized I that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, who am I doing this for if not me? So I started making a lot more art on the side, and I ended up posting something with the Halo Spotlight hashtag on Instagram. So that's where I got my first international followers, and after there, it just kind of took off. I just started painting more and more Halo, which wasn't really what I painted in the beginning, but it kind of became my thing. And I think you can see on my YouTube, like, and on Instagram, like how I kind of had to find my way there. Like it wasn't perfect at the start, but I think I'm getting better with understanding the art style of Halo and all that. So yeah, that's where we are.
That's super cool, man. I also, now that you bring up that they were kind of teaching you in art school a little bit about either marketing or things like that, I feel like even though maybe you dip from the program at a certain time early on, some of those lessons still kind of ring through with some of your communication and the way that you craft your videos, and from the typography to the colors to, like, I guess the whole brand guideline of your
Yeah.
YouTube channel, if you want to call it that. Yeah, me being a graphic designer, via trade, going to art school too, like, that's something I really resonated with. That you actually did take the time to use fonts that were applicable to sort of the Halo universe. So there's a lot of videos on YouTube where it's like top 10 best this, that, and it's just like the
Yeah.
cringiest, most cheesy fonts imaginable. And I always appreciated that, like, hey, this dude is taking time to, like, make this look legit. Like,
Thank you.
it's also not legit in the fact that it's just biting off of, like, the standard aesthetic of the Halo games either. Like, there's a certain amount that is either consistent or feels like maybe it could exist in some sort of Halo universe, but really, I like that you've learned to make it kind of your own thing, and it kind of speaks to itself. It's a nod to the Halo stuff in terms of typography and layout design, but it's also you forging your own way, which I found really, really cool. And I think in that kind of landscape of Halo lore and armor customization stuff, it's kind of for those who don't know, people are very passionate about their video games,
They are. Yeah.
and they're very preferential and have a certain way they think things need to be done. And if it's not done a certain way, they'll, cause havoc and go crazy. So, and even now we're sort of a weird place with Halo, with kind of Infinite that's come out a bit ago, and it had a lot of promise, and it's kind of, I don't know, I just feel like there's constant videos on YouTube of people, rightfully so, just kind of complaining, saying how terrible the game is, etc. And there's just a lot of negativity in there. So that's another thing with your videos too. I just love that it's like literally, I think you did like a Halo 4 and Halo 5 like retrospective video.
Yeah.
And man, those games catch so much hate. As you would kind of imagine after a super substantial trilogy, Halo CE, Halo 2, Halo 3, like those games laid the groundwork for the franchise for sure. And then 4 and 5 come out with a very different kind of art style. Things are a bit more shiny. The Forerunner architecture looks a little bit different, but also kind of similar, but it's kind of like a more advanced, more angular. And it's like they just took the detail knob and just like threw it all the way to the max,
Yeah.
which I find kind of cool, and I think that's something that I really resonated with when I watched your video. I mean, those games, people hate those games, which is a shame because, at 343 and also at Bungie previously in the trilogy, it's not like a couple people sit down and make these things. I mean, we're talking an entire company full of extremely dedicated, talented people who, they pour blood, sweat, and years into these projects. And yeah, I just thought it was great. You did sort of a retrospective, and I had similar thoughts about the series, 4 and 5 Halo. And I think the way you put it was just very succinct. And I was like, everything I kind of had to say about those games, Vernissage kind of summed it up nicely in a clean package. So that
Yeah.
was really cool. What was your sort of approach to some of either that video or even some of the ones that are earlier on your channel? Like, how did you decide to, hey, let me sit behind a microphone and kind of talk about these things beyond just posting?
That's interesting. Well, the thing is, I have made YouTube videos for a long while. Actually, I started making YouTube content when I was just when Halo 5 come out. So that was like 2015, 2016. I had a YouTube channel called Luminous Cactus, which was like my gamer tag at the time. Was trying to make that a thing, and I did a lot of like Halo skits well, not skits really, more like funny moments of Halo and stuff.
Like
Um,
machinima sort of a thing?
I did a few machinimas, but it was mostly like I had like a series called Halo at its Finest. That was just like a bunch, like a. It was basically just me recording stuff that happened. You know, you press the Xbox button and then you press X to record the last 30 seconds. It was a bunch of those clips, and I had a lot of editing in those actually, but it was like, you know, I had some text because I didn't want to talk back then. So that was I kind of got used to the whole YouTube climate back then, I guess. But it's funny because I think I got like until I stopped posting, I think I got maybe 100 subs. Uh, and then I had like after at least after 6 months, because I had that channel in maybe 3, 4 years. And after 6 months with my new channel, Vernissage, I had like 10,000 subscribers. So I kind of realized like, okay, I'm probably gonna do art. Art is a lot more easy to make a thing, I guess, in the YouTube Halo YouTube climate. Uh, but yeah, I don't know what got me into like just talking about my art. I think it was just I realized I had some art. I had made some evolution of Halo at the time, different helmets. Like, how did Master Chief's helmet look back then versus now? And I was like, oh, I guess I could make like a video about this. Try the whole YouTube thing again because I wanted to expand. I think, um, and that gave me a few hundred subscribers because I had my Instagram, which was really helpful. Like people came from my Instagram to watch the videos. But it was really when I made the first redesigning Halo video that it really took off. Like that's when I got, I think it was 5,000 subscribers in a month, something like that, which was insane. I've never seen that growth ever since, but it was yeah, that was a crazy month. I had COVID and everything, so I was sick, but I saw all the love online, which was awesome.
That's
Um,
awesome, dude.
yeah. Uh, so that really redesigning Halo, I felt like, oh, okay, people want to see stuff redesigned from Halo because as you said, like people care sometimes a bit too much about the art of Halo. And especially seeing as also like you said, Halo 4 and 5 very much changed up the overall look of Halo. So I think a lot of people had a bunch of things, a bunch of aspects of the art that they wanted to see reimagined and redesigned. So I think that really helped me grow in the beginning because yeah, even though I don't think I did an incredible job, people still thought there was some potential there. I had some, I guess I had some good ideas or something, which was fun. So yeah, since then I'm trying some different things, but mostly redesigning Halo stuff. But but yeah, as we said, it's very controversial, that whole aspect of redesigning Halo and what Halo is supposed to look like, basically. So you know, I realized like, oh, maybe people are perceiving these videos in a different way than I intended them, because a lot of people would be like, oh, hire this guy, he's 343, the developers of Halo, they don't know what they're doing. Let him do everything. And I was kind of like, you know, I'm not the savior. I don't know how to handle a game. You know, I just make some fan art. So that's more when I started to make stuff like the retrospective of Halo 4 and 5's art style. And I think you can tell by watching that video that I really went like I really cared about that. Because at first it was more like, okay, I want to show people that I don't hate these new games. I think they have some redeeming aspects. But in the process of making it, I just fell in love with the games. Like I just went into like theater mode and just like watched the world and the characters and stuff. And I just fell in love with the at least a lot of places in those games, like a lot of locations and stuff, different planets. Yeah, it's just incredible. So if you watch that video, you can tell that I really care, and a lot of people shit on me for that because I cared about those games. Like, oh, this actually looks good. which apparently you cannot say that when you're talking about Halo 4 and 5. But that was really fun to just not like, even though my videos aren't supposed to be negative, it kind of implies that it needs changing. But it was fun to just talk about the things I think they did right.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I second a lot of what you just said. And there was a few times where kind of to give you a little bit of backstory on sort of this new Halo series that I was kind of putting together via doing paintings. It was funny because some of my favorite things from Halo 3 were the helmets, and like the recon helmet, and in particular the Hayabusa helmet. Like I'd never really been exposed to anything game wise or even artistically at the time that was like had that much variance in creative control that the user had. And that also paralleled, Forge for Halo 3 that came out. Forge was huge for me personally. Like I I don't really know how to do like coding or developing all too much. I mean, I learned some of it in college, but when I was in middle school and I think I was maybe eighth grade, opened up Halo 3, played Halo 3 a little bit. And then I was like, what is Forge? Like, what even is this? So I like click into Forge, and then all of a sudden you're like flying around and you can spawn objects, you can spawn huge cubes and bricks, and you can just build stuff. And I had like no point of access to build anything in the three-dimensional realm other than like Legos or something. And so all of a sudden you're interfacing with a game on a level far beyond just like playing the campaign mode and kind of shooting the aliens. Now I'm in this whole different world. I can spawn objects. I can build. It's kind of funny. Early on, I was a part of I'm sure you've probably heard of Forge Hub. Do you know what Forge Hub is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, for people who don't know, it's basically like a bunch of people who make custom levels and maps and stuff. They kind of partake in this online forum. You make a level, you can share it, and you can get feedback on it. And, in Halo 3 and also Halo Reach, Forge Hub was just like such a booming online space that I was kind of a part of. And we would actually I was one of those people in Halo 3 that made like those like racetracks. So you'd hop in the mongoose, and like there's hills and like loop-de-loops and curves and all kinds of stuff like that. And like, dude, I don't know if you know this, but in order to actually make some of those levels, you had to literally glitch the Halo 3 game itself.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you'd have to spawn an object and then like reset what's it called? I think it was called, like, you don't restart the game, but you kind of restart that segment of your map process. And then you spawn another object. And then those two objects, when you restart it again, become merged.
Yeah.
So like, long story short, you had to go through this, preposterous process that fans of the Forge mode kind of intuitively made this process up. Like, it's not like the game developers sought out and were like, we're going to make it to where you can merge all this stuff. It was like people glitched the game to push the medium of creating levels to such a level that you could make a roller coaster, you can make all this stuff. So, that was kind of my introduction to some of the architecture of the game, as well as the custom helmets, etc. All this is just to say, when I sought out to do kind of a 5-piece canvas study of kind of like you do, sort of a retrospective on some of the Halo elements. Originally, my first idea was like, man, some of those helmets and armor stuff in Halo is so cool. I would love to make a canvas that's like kind of stylized like the recon helmet, or carries some of the geometric nature of that. And so I literally went to YouTube and was kind of doing some research, and I was like, dang, dude, Wernissage just killed that idea. Like, he just took it and just has explained it all in such a way that I'm like, man, if I'm going to try to do something like this, I can't do armor, because I just feel like you put it so succinctly and so in such a good package that, it's hard to compete with that. So,
well, thank you. But I think, well, I think you make a lot more interesting stuff, but nevertheless, it's at the end of the day, it's just, we make different styles of art. So I think that would be awesome. Like seeing these angular, very stylized helmets. I think that would be awesome in your style.
Yeah, I did a couple like mock-up designs of them, but the whole time I kept coming back to like, and this is one of the things I resonate so much with those videos you made, is that you really have a skill to sort of boil the helmet design down to almost like its core, and find ways to either pay tribute to that, or also sort of add subtle additions that don't kind of overpower in the way that maybe the Halo 4 or Halo 5 helmets kind of like I said, the
Yeah,
detail knob is just pushed to the
exactly.
umpteenth degree. I feel like you have a very good way of kind of honoring and pushing that detail knob to a level that it's evolved it's pushed it to a new level, but it's also not kind of bastardizing the previous history of said helmet, etc. Where did you learn sort of that preferential treatment to those helmets, or how did you develop that? Did you feel like Halo 4 and 5 kind of went away from some of this standard style, and this is kind of your response to bringing that detail knob a little bit back?
Good question. I think now that you say it, I think probably Halo was probably like the biggest inspiration for me, like growing up, to realize like, uh, for me at least, art is so much more about, uh, you can really make something look incredibly good with little detail as long as you do it right. Versus you can also make something look good with a lot of detail, but in my opinion, it's a lot bigger of a risk to kind of lose the originality of it, or the recognizability of it. Kind of like to like see like what is this thing, kind of like Transformers. It's okay to, well, I think a lot of those designs look cool in the Michael Bay movies,
Yeah, talking
but
about detail going to the umpteenth degree. Holy
exactly, yeah,
cow.
exactly. So I mean, again, some of them look cool, but in my opinion, they kind of got lost in that, like, oh, we can put a lot of detail in it, so we're gonna do it. Uh, but I think really looking at the new, well, not very new, but the Bumblebee movie that came out a few years ago, uh, that really shows like it's still detailed. Like, there's just as many polygons, I'm sure, but they focus, like they have a few areas that are just clean, just smooth, to break up kind of all the mess, underneath. While the Michael Bay movies were much more like, just noise everywhere, visual noise everywhere, because it looks cool. But it just, I think art can be so much more, do something more with less, instead of doing more with more. Um, so I think, so yeah, probably Halo learned me like teach me about like you don't need a lot of details to make something look good, while Transformers taught me this is how it can look if it goes a bit too far. Uh, so I think I needed that. But well, not to get cocky, but some teachers uh, have told me like they think I do a good job with like placements and stuff, with like where I put different aspects of an artwork,
Like
which
composition.
yeah, exactly, composition. So that's something I've heard. So I'm guessing that kind of helped when I made some, especially some helmet designs, like where to put what and stuff. Um, so I think Halo actually was the biggest inspiration, and the fact that I maybe had some eye for like where to put stuff, probably.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I second a lot of that. I definitely agree with, you have a very good sense for like composition, balance. I don't exactly know the specifics of it, but I think it's called Gestalt theory, which is sort of like some sort of, I don't know, some artistic study in the balance of other objects and other shapes and how those kind of interplay together. And I
Yeah.
feel like you have a very good sense of like visual gestalt that, kind of maybe even unknowingly through your perception of the games and sort of the history of how you've seen it done have kind of taken it to almost provide you sort of a roadmap of, if you were creative director of the franchise, if you will, how you would kind of retreat or pull the detailed knob, not only back, but also bring them to something that's more consistent with what's previously kind of been shown. And funny enough, I was listening to the Not a Halo podcast that you do with a bunch of other really cool and talented Halo creators.
Yeah.
And I think it was Alex that was talking about, I love that you guys talk about sort of music a lot in that podcast too, because I feel like art talk, I mean, you could get lost in it to a certain extent. But the way music parallels a lot of that too. I think Alex brought up that I think she used like Avenged Sevenfold or maybe Green Day or maybe even Metallica as an example of like, these bands start out, they have a certain vision, a certain kind of style or a certain aesthetic to the treatment of their music. They develop some sort of hype off of this treatment, and then they kind of ride that out until they're bored with it. And then, they start to try new things. And that's when, if your favorite band has maybe 2 albums that you love, the first 2 albums they make are perfect to you. That 3rd album, you're like, what happened?
Yeah. Exactly.
What is going on here? What are they doing? Like, this is not why we like them. And I feel like Halo kind of went through a similar treatment with 4 and 5, where people were just so used to the way it had been. And I think that detail knob had been so gradual at that point, and it really parallels kind of what was even possible in gaming at the time too.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if Transformers was made at a point earlier when they really couldn't have infinite polygons to their animations, what would that, how would that have informed the narrative and the style progression over the years? Technology just exponentially increased. And by the time Halo 4 and 5 came out, it was just like, dude, let's Transformers the hell out of this and just,
because I think
the shines and just like textures, reflections, just let it rip.
Yeah, I think you're on something there, because I feel like, when it comes to movies like CGI, I think, what was it, like 2007 when the first Transformers came out, I think. I think that's kind of when they realized like, oh, we can actually make a lot of like we can make some complicated stuff now with CG. So I think that really reflects in that movie, like, oh, we want to show off what we can do. And I think the same thing happened with games like around 2012, kind of with the new generation and stuff. Like, games started to become a lot more, they're more capable of rendering, a lot more details. So I think you're on something there. Like Halo 4 and 5, they realized they could do a lot of details and stuff. So I think that's what pushed them to do that. I think now, like today with movies and video games, I think everyone knows what they're capable of. So I feel like game developers are more free to do whatever they want because they don't have to show off. Like, obviously we can have a lot of details. So I think we see that in Halo Infinite. Like there's a lot of details, but it's a lot more simple. It's a lot more easy to understand, which is something I prefer. But of course, you can like the other side of it too if you want.
Yeah, exactly. And paralleling kind of what Alex was saying too in regards to music, let's say your favorite band does go down a certain route that you're not used to. Eventually, either their sales kind of dip down or even they've played out their new style and they've been kind of on this journey to find whatever the new direction is, etc. They get to a point where it's like, you know what? That old stuff was fun. That old stuff we actually enjoy now that we've had some time to reflect on it. We don't have to, the example I have is like some musicians, especially in genres that like metal, for instance, if you're in a hardcore band, You make a couple of hardcore albums. That stuff's not that hard to play on guitar. It's just power chords. You strum kind of fast, and that's kind of the extent of it. But I feel like some bands get into like a sort of musical, musical technical show off game of like, we're just going to write as complex stuff as we possibly can. And it's good because it shows how much we can do. I mean, I literally saw a band last week that, man, dude, the drummer he just had too much going on. It was like, bro, you don't need to put that much stuff in there. Like
Yeah.
you're battling with everyone else in your band to all be
Yeah.
like, it's like if everyone plays solos at the same time, you're like, bro, what is happening? If
Yeah.
you like that kind of a thing, cool. But
Yeah.
to me, there's something to be said with like pushing the detail knob and also keeping things balanced in a certain way that it communicates effectively.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Exactly. Yeah.
become that Transformers noise.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. I think just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. uh, and I think like if we bring up the Michael Bay Transformers again, I think if you just put some clean armor pieces, over it, I think it will look good because you have this visual noise which you're not really supposed to focus on. But then you have these easy to understand pieces, so you both get these like, oh, it's a lot of details, it looks real, but it's not visual noise. Like my eyes can at least look at it, um, which I always prefer. Having something that's more easy to understand, something you can look at instead of just getting lost in all the detail. And something I've always like the rule I've always gone by is, if I can look at a movie, I can look at a suit or some armor, and if I can go home after that and kind of paint it, then I think it succeeds as being easily recognizable and just a good design, basically. Because the moment you start adding too much detail and you can paint a picture in your head of what it looks like, you kind of lose. Like that means it wasn't recognizable. And a lot of the times you want it to be recognizable because you want people to think about it and you want to leave an impact. But if it's just noise, it kind of gets lost in there. If you can paint it, then you obviously don't have an image of it in your head. So that's usually what I go by.
Yeah, I second that, dude. Especially with my artwork as well. Like there's a fine line between pushing it too far and kind of keeping things in a range that communicates effectively. It's something I actually learned in design school, that oftentimes, and I try to make my artwork communicate in the same way, that sometimes the best design actually goes unnoticed because it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's like, I feel like people didn't know that the Halo 3 art style was just this, maybe not Halo 3, maybe Halo 2, except, whatever, but you almost didn't know that it was the right dials in place until after these other games come out. Then it's like, oh yeah, that was kind of what we sort of generally as a community kind of resonated with the most, almost. And it's like, you really do need to push things in another direction to even come back and have that retrospective, because without experimentation and pushing things, you're never going to have that hindsight to know where that knob is supposed to kind of be. And I feel like Halo Infinite did a pretty good job of, despite some of the developmental hurdles with its current state, I was impressed with my first experience with that. And like, I'm not really a big gamer. Like truth be told, I played Halo 3. I forged a lot. And then when Reach came out, I forged a lot with Halo Reach.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, I never really played much Call of Duty or really any games other than that, really. I mean, I just think the Halo universe has been so deep and interesting, and like, it's one of those things, like you said, when you were a kid, you're kind of walking around these Forerunner buildings and like this campaign mode and the story, and yeah, it's cool or whatever, but really, like, when you're young, it's just, okay, yeah, you shoot the bad guys and then you get points or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're a little older and you play it, it's like, dang, dude, like, I think I watched like a late night gaming segment on some of the Forerunner stuff when I was doing research for my paintings, and he said something that kind of stood out to me, that um, it's almost like these Forerunner buildings and architecture are sort of like cathedrals, like these ancient kind of old hyper technological cathedrals that you're sort of roaming around this completely different world, that there's these huge monolithic obelisk things that are, shooting plasma into the atmosphere or something. And it's like, it's otherworldly, but in a way, I think he talked about how he went to some like Christian Orthodox cathedrals or something back in the day. And there's a sense of familiarity towards the treatment of the Forerunner buildings with how cathedrals are sort of architecturally structured. There's these kind of long corridors and hallways, and there's a repetitive sense of scale and of leading lines that are kind of utilized through religious architecture in a way that I really hadn't really thought of that before. That there is some sort of connection like that there. And yeah, I thought you put that, I think you touched on that a little bit in your 4 and 5 retrospective, that, yeah, these things are kind of awe-inspiring. And even though the 4 and 5 treatment's a little different, they're still kind of beautiful artistic pieces to be kind of considered, which I respect.
Yeah, exactly. I think Halo 4 and 5, well, especially Halo 4. Halo 5 is probably my least favorite version of like the Forerunner, especially like their aesthetic. But I think Halo 4 did something interesting because it was like, I loved the Forerunner stuff in the earlier games. Halo 4 was interesting because it didn't have a lot of these repetitive stuff. It was kind of flashy. We wanted to show off like, oh, look at this structure, look at this hallway, which is something I can respect because it does look really good, especially on an old Xbox 360, which is insane. But yeah, it's exactly like what you said in the late night gaming. I think my favorite is probably Halo 3 because of like, I usually just go into the mission, the Ark. And for those who don't know, the Ark is basically like a massive, structure, I guess you could say, but it's almost like a planet. And it's like a couple of light years away from the Milky Way galaxy, I think. So when you go there through a portal, you just look up at the sky and you just see like the Milky Way galaxy up there. And you just realize like, oh, I'm pretty far away from home. And then you just roam around these just abandoned structures and hallways and sand over everywhere. Just like it really it's creepy but kind of cozy. I usually just stop moving there for a while and just like look around, just like taking like, oh, people used to live here. Even though it's a video game from 2007, it feels like someone used to live here like 100,000 years ago, and now it's just empty. And we're pretty far away from home, which just stuff like that. It's the simple things that really got me into more of that Forerunner style, the repetitive corridors, as you say. Like if there's a Forerunner wall in Halo 3 and the earlier games, it's just like a repetitive wall. It looks the same the entire way around the entire Halo ring. While in Halo 4 and 5 it was more like it wanted to show off, it wanted to be its own thing, more unique. But I think I can respect both of them. I just think I like more of the classic one, the more subtle Forerunner aesthetic.
Definitely, man. It's so funny you brought up like these spaces being abandoned, because in my creative journey, in my later years in high school, I actually got into painting graffiti. And so all of a sudden I'm going from, playing these video games and exploring these worlds and going to these like old ancient buildings that are either falling apart or nature. I guess Guardians is kind of, or Guardian, the multiplayer map is kind of an example of nature sort of reclaiming this, ancient structure. And so once I started painting graffiti, now I'm literally exploring the city and finding, oh snap, like I'm literally inside of an abandoned factory that is literally getting swallowed by, nature and moss and trees. And like, in a weird way, I had that exact same experience from playing Halo, where like you're like, wow, I'm in this, people used to work here. There used to be something happening here. And now I'm in this new space that's now extremely quiet, extremely subtle. And you're kind of imagining in your head what it could have been like when the Forerunners were, roaming these corridors or something. And now I'm in like an old car factory thinking, oh wow, the cars came through here, and that's crazy that, there used to be so much living within this space. And so it was kind of weird exploring places in the city and like feeling like I'm in a Halo map, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree. It's funny you bring that up because I usually like compare uh, all the Forerunner stuff of the Halo games to these liminal spaces, those images of like places that
Yeah.
yeah, it's often like a what's it called? It could be a school at night. It's just empty and dark, and there's like a light at the end maybe, but nothing more than that. It's just kind of creepy. Like there should be people here, but there's no one here. Something is just off, and you feel like you've been there before. That's really what the Foreigner
Yeah.
style is.
100%, man. It's so crazy you bring that up, because like I just imagine a couple people who make a game sitting down and like trying to make that. It just seems like
Yeah.
a hard thing to sit down and make. Like,
How do you make that?
it's just crazy, dude. Like,
Insane.
yeah, man, that's wild. So one thing I like to touch on in each podcast, especially, is kind of what were some lowlights with your creative journey, whether it be um, Vernissage, like the YouTube channel, or making your art and just trying to get it out there, or and even how art and sort of this Halo fascination, how that plays into sort of your day to day, whether it be a job or a profession, or kind of, I guess what I'm saying is, what are some lowlights, and also how does art play a role in sort of keeping your lights on and being an integral part of your day to day?
Yeah, good question. Low lights, you mean like low moments, kind of
Yeah.
when yeah,
AKA,
yeah, exactly.
what traumas have you had to suffer through to
Yeah.
pursue
Oh,
the
there's a few.
enjoyment of your art?
There's a few. No, but uh, like in the beginning, it was very much positive. Like that's really, in a way, that's kind of the best part of like making videos or making content. And when you're kind of quote unquote blowing up, it's always most fun in the beginning in a way, because everyone who's there wants to be there, and they feel like, oh, I'm part of a small community. I love this, um, so that's something magical with that. But while I got bigger and bigger, I got more and more comments like someone was claiming uh I was hating on 243's art, which I never do. Some people just tell me why I'm wrong, and that like, even though I put months of work into a video, I get told it's not supposed to be that way, and that yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can't come up with anything on the spot, but there's been a few comments that like really ruined my day. But
Dang.
I think you get better at that. Like I get better like okay, they're probably like uh 10 years old, and they don't even know, like, yeah, no offense to 10-year-olds, but a lot of the times it's people who don't really think before they say something. The ones I do take issue with is people who write like a novel of points, and they're all just negative, never understanding my point of view, just complaining for the sake of complaining. And it's like, I'm all for feedback. I love feedback, but I just don't like when it gets either personal, or like when you take stuff out of context, stuff like that. And that's something I've realized I just have to get used to, because it's the internet. 'Cause obviously, there's always going to be people like that. Uh, so like recently, it was pretty tough. Like with both of my Promethean videos. For people that don't know, the Promethean style. Well, the Prometheans are kind of a part of what the Forerunner aesthetic. Um, but they were introduced in Halo 4, which was they were kind of controversial because they didn't look very Forerunner. So some people love them because they think they look cool. Some people don't like them because they don't fit the Forerunner style. And that's something I've tried 2 times. I first tried to redesign the weapons of the Prometheans. And looking at it now, I don't think I did a great job. And I got some, mostly like respectful feedback, which I appreciate, but it wasn't very positive. So that was quite a hit. But then recently, like my last video was redesigning the Prometheans themselves, like an enemy type, which was I got a few positive. Well, I got a lot of positive response, but I also got a lot of negative response, especially on like Reddit and stuff. It was kind of tough to see so many people just agreeing, like, "Oh yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing," which is it's always tough when you kind of become like, "Oh, that guy, he's that guy who ruins the designs I know and love," which is never
Dang.
what you want to do. Yeah, like I don't work for Halo. I just make fan art. That's always what I say. But like, I just make fan art. Like, it's okay if you don't like them, and I'm always open for criticism, respect for criticism. But like,
That's like in a way they because you put it in such a succinct package, and because the messaging and communication is well thought out and considered, thus it must be from 343 themselves. Like it's just you really have to spell it out for some folks that look like, yeah, I'm just a guy and I enjoy this stuff, and I have a few ideas too, but they're not the Bible. It's a couple
exactly.
things that it's like a little bit of extra salt on this, and I think it would have tasted good, kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I usually try to like tell people in a calm way, like, I'm not 343 Industries. I don't make the games. I'm just a fan. But you're obviously allowed to criticize it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're allowed to call me a dickhead for making those designs, but I'm probably not going to respond to that. I'm probably not going to look at that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. And like, even like with this latest video with the Prometheans, it was kind of tough because like, I think a few days after releasing that, there was an artist who I believe he worked on Halo Infinite, actually, probably as a contractor. But he actually made some redesigns of the Prometheans, which I'm certain he started working on them before me, so probably didn't make them just to like shit on me. Obviously, he was very respectful about it. But he posted his redesign of the Prometheans, which I'm not just saying it. I really preferred his designs, and I've had some people say they prefer my designs, which that's nice. But I really do think his designs were better, and most of the people thought so too. And that was kind of hard to like. He was very respectful. He protected me in a lot of the comments, because a lot of the comments pointed out like, oh, I saw a video of someone redesigning them the other day, and it was awful compared to this.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so he was really respectful about it, but it was kind of a big hit. Like, oh shit, someone did what I did but better. Just a couple of days after, that was kind of heavy, but at the same time, I think it kind of taught me a lesson. Like, that's just how it is. That's the world. You got to get used to that. Sometimes sometimes some people like something someone else did compared to what you did, and that's just the way it is. Like, I still make the art I make, and some people probably prefer what I do. Some people prefer what he does, and I think that's important to realize. Like, we all have our audiences, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And kind of speaking to your discussion on like, the fact that this guy who redesigned the Prometheans, etc., even knows about the things that you've made and has kind of spoken towards the efforts you have taken, have you garnered any sort of response from, let's say, 343 or Bungie or either ex or current employees who actually do make these games? You know, I'm sure you get lots of comments where people are like, oh, they just need to hire Vernissage to do
Yeah.
the helmet, you know,
Yeah.
customization and etc. Have you actually interacted or talked with some of the people who have worked on these games? And yeah, what's your take on that kind of? Not to put you on the
Uh,
spot.
no, very good. No, but well, 343 hasn't come out and said, "Oh, Vernissage, he's the Halo artist. You guys got to check him out." But yeah, I've had a few people who at least have worked on 343 like comment on my stuff, which is, it always makes my day. Now, even though he didn't respond to any art I did, but Joseph Staten did comment on my post once. He's the writer for Halo 3 ODST, I think. He was working on all the Halo games, basically, and Halo 2,
Mm-hmm.
I think, too. Stuff like that. But that was it's not relevant because that was for like a video I made of like I was grappling around in Halo Infinite like Spider-Man. It kind of went viral, but oh well. So that's more of like where I've spoken quote unquote to the higher ups at 343. Uh, but yeah, I think I've gotten in touch with a few people who've worked on it, and it always just makes my day when someone I really respect and look up to follow me. Like the artist for, I think he's worked on pretty much every single Halo game. Uh, Isaac Hannaford. Um, he hasn't commented on my art, but he did start following me the other day, which was nice. So I hopefully he saw some of my art and thought, hey, let's follow him. Uh, I want
He
to think
must have, yeah.
I hope so. So that really made my day. I love when I get, yeah, when someone sees my art that I really respect and someone likes it.
Yeah, man, it's a big and very loud and very dense world of content, and you know, YouTube's such a big place with classic machinimas from, you know, 2008 still living on YouTube with millions of views. The Red versus Blue series, you know, it's a busy place to even kind of stand out and try to make something. Um, yeah, I've just kind of tiptoed into it a little just with my Halo series that I've been painting, but yeah, it's been wild, man, and it's been really cool to observe, you know, your progression and your history kind of doing what you do. And man, I think if anybody's a fan of any of the Halo games, and if you've listened to this podcast thus far, definitely check out Vernissage's stuff more and keep following, keep updated. And you know, he's constantly posting, you're doing cool teasers and stuff of new videos you're about to drop. And man, I just can't say it enough. I think you do a really, really good job, man.
Thanks, and likewise. I see that you're. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're kind of inspired by, especially like the foreigner aesthetic for a lot of your works. Is that correct? Like not just the Halo works.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's something that I didn't even know I was like inspired by.
Yeah.
Like I said, I started painting graffiti and went to design school. And like as I was working in design, I realized I had a preference for typography and lettering that was like always moving forward. You know, it was
Yeah.
always italicized and fast
Angular.
and angular. And like I didn't know why. Like, I don't really live in a very angular place. Like I said, I literally just live in like a farm state. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe
when
that's why you need it.
yeah, seriously.
Yes.
And I moved downtown to go to college. And, you know, at that point I was engaging with the architecture and even through painting graffiti, you're really interacting with the building on like a very direct kind of intimate level where otherwise you'd walk past a building and it's just a wall. Now, as a graffiti writer and as an artist, you're kind of looking at the scale of the wall. And I don't know, just the fabric of a city is so dense with so much visual noise. Um, and I kind of started developing a preference for angular architecture in my own city. And I really had no idea where this preference came from. And then like I said, I played a lot of Halo 3, a lot of Halo Reach, a little bit of 4, but I kind of fell off of Halo like a while ago. Maybe, I don't know, like when did Reach come out?
Uh, 2010, I want to say.
2010?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started painting graffiti in like 2013. So basically, stopped playing Halo, started painting graffiti pretty consistently.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't played Halo for, over maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And my youngest brother, he's autistic and he loves video games and loves playing video games with me. And so I actually purchased an Xbox once Halo 5 came out. And I was like, I don't really play a lot of video games anymore, but I know my little brother Sean has recently like found Halo, and he's now of age
Oh,
where he can play Halo, and he's actually like darn good at it. You
that's
know,
awesome.
and so all of a sudden I'm like falling in love with Halo again through the eyes of my younger brother, which is kind of neat.
That's so
And
great.
kind of explaining to him some of the story, and we'd play through the campaign and he's asking, okay, who is this person? I'm like, well, I'm giving him kind of the Cliff
Yeah.
Notes version of this extremely dense game. And yeah, it just hit me. I was like, dude, I think I went into, I forget which multiplayer map it was, but I was trying to sort of learn some of the multiplayer maps to sort of teach Sean where the sniper is or where the rocket
Yeah.
launcher is, and so on and so forth. And I went on one of the maps. I don't remember the name of it, but it's in Halo 5, and it's kind of like an asteroid type of map,
Oh, yeah.
but there's like floating little rocks that are kind of floating through space, and the skybox is just like stunning,
Yeah.
dude.
It's funny you bring that up. I always seem to forget what it's called. I think it's all the way down in the list, so it must be like a letter and at the end of the alphabet.
Yeah, I
I
thought it
always
started with
forget.
like Z or a V or something.
Yeah, something like
Like
that. But yeah,
Vortex, maybe?
it's something like that. Yeah. But it's funny you bring that up because that's honestly my favorite Halo 5 map just because of the aesthetics, like how it
Yeah.
looks. I've always loved that. So that's always where I go if I want to get some screenshots and stuff because both the structures there and the, like you said, the skybox is insane because there's just like this big sun, right?
It's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, and the stuff floating everywhere, and that's Halo 5's aesthetic done right. I think like it's
Hmm.
complicated, but it keeps itself in check.
A
Like it
hundred
doesn't go
percent.
way too far. Which yeah, it looks incredible.
Yeah, well said, dude. Like the way that the architecture also blends into the environment was really cool too. And I just kind of realized I was walking around that map. I was like, dude, this stuff is just still killer. Like,
Yeah,
I just completely kind of forgot about how cool this stuff is, and seeing 343's kind of approach to that too. And man, I was like, I'd love to do some sort of something Halo related. I don't even know what it would be. And that's when I kind of found your artwork and your videos too, just engaging with more Halo content and sort of trying to relearn where these games are and where the lore and where the culture kind of is with this. And
yeah,
yeah, I fell in love with Forerunner architecture all over again, and just tried to incorporate it into my artwork because yeah, like the angles, the sense of scale, that's something I really appreciated with those games, that you're just a little guy and you're
yeah,
just in these. I mean, I don't even know how tall some of these monolithic things are. Some of them just go off into the atmosphere,
yeah,
into space. Like they're
yeah,
just gone. They're huge. And so when I paint a mural, I try to bring some of that Forerunner awe and like sense of scale, and try to actually put that into a mural so that when you're standing there, you're kind of feeling that like cathedral-esque sort of experience, being like, oh, well, I'm in this weird new place with these crazy lines that are 100 feet long and they just go off and wrap around the building. And like, I don't know, I'm trying to just capture some of that and put it onto a wall in some form of a fashion. Um, so
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily look like Forerunner architecture, but I do see what you mean. There's definitely a parallel there. So I tried to kind of do 5 painting studies that are with that at the forefront of the creative process. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping to release them here soon. I'll show
Awesome.
you some sneak peeks of them
Oh,
prior
I'd
to
love to.
release for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Well, cool, man. This has been fun. I appreciate you coming on. I'm honored to talk with somebody from a different place too. You know, it's cool chatting with people all around the world. That's
Yeah.
something that podcasting definitely allows.
Yeah, it's definitely the best part of like you said, I started a podcast with some friends, and two of them live in the US. I think one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. I live in Sweden, and the fourth member lives in New Zealand. So we're literally from all over the world, which it's always fun when you bring something up, you know, like some food or sport or something, and everyone's just like, "Wait, what?" And you just realize
Yeah,
how different we are, even though we're very similar in other ways. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
definitely, man. You had a discussion the other day on one of the podcasts that was like accent based, talking
Yeah.
about, sort of the New Zealand accent versus the Australian accent.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I think the guy from New Zealand did like the the northern rural like country version of the accent there. And I don't know, I was like, if there's a US version, I feel like my accent would be in the in the country range.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting with that because I'm sure you like have an accent, but to me, it's even though I dabble in a lot of English, I talk with a lot of English speaking people, but I still have a hard time like differentiating accents. To me, you just sound like, you know, uh, I guess you could say typical American. Like you sound like an American, but I'm sure you have an accent. But I'm getting there. I'm trying to find those.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up accents too, because I never really thought about this, but even in your videos, like from somebody from the States, when I hear people speaking on things, I almost, if it's somebody who has something interesting to say, um, I don't want to hear it in like I don't want me being like, so the reason I like the Forerunner architecture, like I just feel like your accent, you being from Sweden, it just it's softer and provides like a really good, I don't know. I'm not trying to get too creepy here, but I just
Yeah,
feel like
no,
it
no, you're
it
good.
blends with your videos really well in a way
That's
that
so
it's
nice.
it's not combating like the footage and the videos and the art.
Yeah,
It kind of meshes in a way which I think is really cool.
that's
It's you
awesome.
can literally put it in the background and just let it roll, which I think is awesome.
That's great. It's funny you say that because believe it or not, but even though I make a lot of videos where I talk for like half an hour, uh, and I make music, I've never liked my voice, especially growing up. Like I've gotten used to it now, more or less. But I've always thought it's like too thick or like too weird, and I never liked my accent because it's uh, the typical Swedish. I don't really have the typical Swedish accent, but I don't have a perfect American accent either. I'm somewhere, I don't know where I
I
am,
think it works
what
well
accent.
though.
But yeah,
What would the typical Swedish accent sound like?
well, in television and stuff, it's usually like it sounds like German, like the typical German accent, but it's not that. Like the Swedish accent would be something like this. You talk very, the T's are very direct,
Mm.
where I make more of the American T, the T, where a Swedish person would make a T like this. Yeah,
Was that a
not a lot
conscious
of.
choice or just kind of as you've been involved with the internet for a long enough time and people you've grown up with, you kind of have evolved that?
Yeah, I think I'm part of the generation that's that started to become more and more Americanized, or growing up with a lot of English in my surroundings, and like YouTube especially, I think is what teach me a lot more so than school. Well, school did teach me grammar, but like for the accent and stuff, I think I just realized like, okay, if I say the T like this with like an S at the end, the T, it sounds more American because I learned that by listening to people. So that kind of became the way I talk. So I get stuck on words sometimes because like saying ghosts and stuff, where it's like that. Some are even difficult for Americans to say.
Like wasps.
Wasps. Yeah.
And bread crisps.
Bread crisps. Yeah. It's really hard, but so yeah, I think my video, like recording my voice, would be a lot easier if I just spoke the regular Swedish accent. But since I kind of have some tips and tricks as how to make it sound a little bit more American, I'm trying to use those as well.
That's wild, man. I wouldn't have picked that up from your videos. So that's an interesting take on it. Is this I mean, this is probably a weird question, but are you Americanizing this podcast, or is this your standard way of speaking?
Well, when I speak English, this is the way I talk.
Okay, cool.
So I just have like one English, but yeah, I can, I can do the Swedish accent. I can also do a very poor English accent, a very Americanized accent, but I've never been very good at accents, so you wouldn't want to hear it.
No,
but yeah, for English, I just have like this.
Got you.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up here in the Midwest, like, man, we got people, man.
Yeah,
we can go down to the corner store, man. Get you some gas, man. Got people. It just mumble the words together.
Yeah.
So if I do any speaking or podcasting, I try to sound. I use less yaws and y'alls.
Yeah. Y'all. Yeah, that's something I've started to use. Like y'all, I usually type, like, it started as a joke, but now it just, like, when I ask questions in my Discord and stuff, I usually just say, like, what do y'all think? Like, I just pick up on stuff, because so it's interesting when you're in my case from Sweden, and you, like, it's not like I live in an area where people talk English in a specific way. I kind of pick up on different areas. So sometimes I say cheers, but that's more of a British thing to say. And sometimes I spell things in British, like color with a U at the end. But then I'm like, wait, I kind of talk more American. Maybe I should spell it the American way. It's interesting when you just pick whatever you want. Like, oh, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. Yeah, it becomes wild, a Frankenstein language.
Yeah, there's a lot of that even in like typographic and graphic design too, where different influences have formed why letter form looks a certain way. So like even in my design background, I tried to like hybridize and like I try to streamline and make sort of new typefaces or something that are almost void of those kind of preferential treatments, if you will.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. It's neat. And I think your videos and your artwork definitely touch on, I don't know. I think you've just got a unique perspective on a lot, and like the way you chew through the complexities of the Halo landscape and more is pretty cool. And, you're digitally painting those, right? So like that's a whole art form and a whole craft as well that people don't probably see the hours and the time that goes into like sketching those out, like iterating on all of those. And yeah, man, I have tremendous respect for that. I know it's definitely not easy.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a bigger, like a longer process than you might think. Because like you said, first you got to come up with the idea, like a sketch, like how do I want this to look? But then when you have that nailed down, you got to start on actually making it look 3D in my case, which I usually do. Add some lighting, some shadows, and color correcting. So it's more than just like painting something and then you're done. You got to paint something that looks good. Then you make it realistic. Then you maybe realize, oh, this doesn't look good. So now I got to change that. And so yeah, exactly. It's a complicated process.
Definitely, dude. Well, this has been fun, man. I've taken up enough of your day, dude. So you enjoy the rest of your week, man. And I'm looking forward to the next video you're gonna drop, dude. It's gonna be cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Appreciate it, man.